Sweet. All right, we are live with another Mary Truth Talks, and we have a new guest today, Psych Life. Introduce yourself real quick.
Hey, what's up, guys? My name's Juan Martel, and I am the CEO and founder of Psych Life. Thanks for having me on, Mary, and thanks for having me on, Laz. And what's up, everybody?
Heck yeah. All right, so before we begin, follow me on Instagram, Mary_Truths with an S, and on TikTok. I'm on fire every single day. So if you want to know what I have to say on a daily basis, that's where you'll go. And Psych Life, you want to put on your tag?
So my handle is @_Psych Life, PSYCH Life _ and you can find me on Instagram and on YouTube as well. Just put in Psych Life and I'll be probably the first one that comes up.
Sweet.
Symbols right here.
Yeah, I love that shirt. It
Thank
says
you.
everything and it's very simple at the same time. So before we begin, big announcement. Laz and I are engaged. So fun times. It was on top of a mountain, and maybe we'll get to that later on today. It was probably it was unforgettable in many ways because my body still hurts from the hike, but we'll show you guys. We have like a bunch of videos, so we'll get into that later on. So today's stories are the following. Law and Order, I love to talk about that first. The update on the Diddy trial. Immigration, undocumented woman is being fined millions for ignoring removal order. That recently just came out, like today. Economy, Treasury Secretary explains tariffs can lower inflation. I want to know your input on that because I know that you told me you're more on the economy side. International, Trump makes trade deal with the Middle East. That was crazy. And a little bit of politics here. Trump passes executive order to lower costs of pharmaceutical drugs. I thought that was a really big story, and the fact that you're here is perfect timing because that is technically your industry. So I want to know what you think about that. All right, let's get on with the first one. So before we get into the update on this, so it's already been like 5 days since the trial. I don't know if you're catching on to it. And so I don't know if you remember in 2018 or 2017, there was a guy that went to the Doral Trump golf course here in Doral and shut up the top of it. Like it went to the lobby and started shooting it up. And then they caught him. They started interrogating him. And he looked like he had like one of those batas for hospitals. Like it looked like he just came out of a psych ward or something. And then I don't know if you remember, if you can find that video, babe. It's we spoke about it on a live like 3 months ago. I forgot what this guy's name is. He's one of the sex workers that Diddy would pay to have sex with Cassidy, and he said in 2017 or 2018 that he believes that Trump was gonna get assassinated. So this was like very early on that he's saying this, and then he was saying how Rick Ross and all these other people were having sex with each other. So I thought that was interesting that we were talking about that 3 months ago on live, and then the Diddy trial pops up, and then now this guy is one of the guys doing a testimony on it. So I don't know if you can find it really quick.
I found something.
Okay. Because I thought that was such weird timing. I was like, what are the odds that this pops up, and then now I didn't even know he was gonna testify on the Diddy. I knew Cassidy was gonna testify, but I didn't think that guy was gonna testify.
I think I saw.
So in May of 2018,
You know what I'm talking about?
a man named Jonathan O.
There's so much shit that happens like that.
Are we gonna play it or?
No, see if you can find the actual recording of it. What were you gonna say?
Oh yeah, this is.
I think I saw him talking about it, and he was mentioning how all of them are gay, right?
Yeah,
so
that's
you
the
just use
guy.
those words that there he is.
You summed it up so beautifully there.
There he is.
Yeah, there you go. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, are you gonna play it or?
Yeah, a little bit of it,
Okay.
just to
Yeah, it's so.
get people's memories because a lot of things have happened.
He would masturbate, tell me what to do with Cassie. I had like 15 encounters, and I heard lots of business. Because what they would do is Sean talks a lot on the phone and on the TV with speakers and stuff, and I was like a sex slave.
So at the time,
All right. So what do you think about? Like that's just a little clip, but there's another video that's going on X now of him saying that supposedly Diddy knew that Trump was gonna get assassinated way before the attempt happened. So what do you think about this before we actually get into the nitty-gritty?
But what do I think if that guy's lying or saying the truth?
Yeah, like I mean, if he is saying the truth, what do you think?
So, wow, this podcast is wild.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So,
Yes, it
as far as what he's saying, based on things that I have consumed on X and on other platforms, I don't think that, Diddy was this very innocent little bunny that just did music and loved making music and it was all love and peace. He obviously had a lot of history in the rap game or the hip hop industry, and I wouldn't doubt if everybody really is gay in that industry or does things to move up.
Yeah, that's what I think really is. You're willing to do things to move up.
And sometimes us, and not normal, I mean, it depends what normal is, but people that just live typical lives, we underestimate what goes on behind the scene in certain industries. I one time had a next door neighbor who was very involved in choreographing like Shakira videos and things of that nature, and he would get me a lot for meet and greets. He would get me a lot, and at the time I needed money, and when I would show up to these meet and greets, it was a little bit weird. I mean, the type of people that would go would be a certain type of crowd, and
Get a little more specific here. What do you mean weird?
For example, one time I was a model and they asked me to dress up as a merman, and it was mermaids and mermans, and they would stick us under this this walk cross, so I could barely fit in there, but I have to act like a merman, and there was other mermaids and other mermans, and so as they're walking into the entrance of the venue, we're mermans and mermaids. At the time I was very young. I was like 19, and it was $250 for 2 hours, 3 hours of doing it. Who's not going to do it?
Yeah.
Especially at that age. That's a lot of money. You could do a lot of things with that money at that age, especially at that time frame. But we underestimate what happens in those industries.
Yeah, especially the modeling industry.
And so with him, I wouldn't doubt if what he's saying has some truth to it, has some validity to it. And especially after what's come out with the court cases with P. Diddy. But, they're almost sounds like they're sex addicts.
Did you ever hear about Pizzagate?
Pizzagate? Oh, of course.
Okay. So this last, I think it was yesterday, Justin Bieber puts out a picture of himself eating a pizza, and like in a way where he's like recording himself eating the pizza, and that's like the first time he's ever like posted anything, and he just happens to post, like, I don't believe in coincidences. He just happened to post that during this trial that's going on right now. And then now a lot of people are insinuating that perhaps what he's saying is that there was also little people involved, not just adults.
Wasn't that what Epstein is about?
Exactly. Yeah. And I also think that's connected to this.
But isn't that what Epstein's about? And isn't that what also all those kids, those hundreds of tens of thousands, I think they said a number like 300,000. I can't believe that's the right number, but all these
right
tens, it's not right. There's more.
There's more. Yeah, those are the ones that they were able to find.
All these tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of kids that go missing, I don't think it's by accident. Where are they? Mm-hmm. And when they do get kidnapped for whatever reason, where do they go?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
And there's very powerful people that exist that do things that we never really know about. And that's where I'm sure this podcast is going to go later. But that's what government has always been. Right? You start off with going back just as far back as, let's say, 11,000 years ago when private property first started. Private property is the foundation of everything. Mm-hmm. And its natural elites are born. The best producers are the ones that get the most land and have the most kids. And so they get to build the most. Because when you're the best producer, you're producing things that people want. So you need land. So you will immediately get a little bit more land, and you're able to have more kids because kids were privatized back then. Then comes kings.
Right.
And then thousands of years later come democracies. But still, in the background, there's always people in the shadow that run everything.
Yeah.
And there's very sick people
What are they?
that run.
What is it? What are they called? The cabal, the cabals or something like that. They have a bunch of names, but that's like that's the easiest name because they used to be Illuminati, and then that became so like heavy, and like everybody uses that now. Even in music now, they're putting that. So now people are saying the cabal. Like supposedly there's this cabal of people that have a lot of money and are into weird shit because they have nothing better to do than, and supposedly they're saying that he's a pawn to this. But then at the same time, I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, if he's a pawn, then the goal is to not get him in prison. The goal is to either free him or Epstein him. Because if they get him for sure, he's not going to be the only one going down. He's going to be ratting out, a bunch of other people. Because he's like, if I'm going to go down, all you motherfuckers are going to go down.
One of the things, and this is pure speculation.
Everything's speculated, by the way, guys. Allegedly.
But one of the things that Trump was elected on was that he was going to release the Epstein list. That he was going to do certain things. But in this case, we're talking about the Epstein list. I think that after all these years, all the evidence that they've had, I'm sure it's been mounted.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm sure that he's using that because nobody is perfect. Everybody has a price for different things. That's just the way it is. Even me, I have a price for some things. I'm not even thinking about anything in particular. But if we were to bring up a hypothetical, I have a price too.
Yeah.
I'm sure that he uses it as a bargaining tool.
That's crazy that you said that because
I'm sure he does, and he's a smart man.
Bro, that's crazy that you said that because you know who PBD is? Patrick Bet-David?
No.
Oh, I'm putting you on. Okay,
No.
well, he's another podcaster, but he's really big onto economics. He's an entrepreneur. But he was recently talking about how even though we all know that human trafficking and everything that's been going on with Diddy and Epstein is severely and immorally wrong in every shape and form, it's massive power when you can use that as leverage to get people to do things that they wouldn't do.
And that's why I think maybe with P. Diddy, I think it was, aren't there bigger people behind it? You were asking. I'm sure they are, and
like Bill Gates, allegedly, but
and
he would hang out a lot with Epstein. The royal guy, Prince Andrew, right? Prince Andrew, that's the guy's name? Allegedly.
And when it comes, since we don't live in this world, we have trouble seeing the pieces. I know I do. But if I were Diddy, it's not even about myself anymore. It's about my heirs.
Yeah.
Heirs, meaning my kids. My kids, if they have. You don't want your whole bloodline to be lost. And I'm sure that that's hanging over his head right now.
Yeah.
Because if one thing that we know is anyone can commit suicide. Anyone can just disappear.
Yep.
Anyone can just wake up and they were murdered and shot on the street randomly.
Yep.
And that must be very important for P. Diddy. So it's not just why hasn't he said anything and how's they not going to get exposed. He has a lot of things to lose besides himself. And I'm sure, he's still a man at the end of the day.
That's a good perspective.
And so when we're humans and there's nothing worse that can happen than that our younger ones are threatened, our kids.
Yeah.
And how much time have we devoted to our kids? And he's devoted a lot of time to his kids, a lot of resources, a lot of money. And even if he goes, at least that investment continues and lives on. His name lives on. His blood lives on. So I'm sure that's a factor in why these big players maybe won't even come out. If he says something, what happens to his kids?
Yeah. I mean, I would assume, what is that called? Witness protection or whatever?
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. When you're that big, I don't think there's there's not much the government can do for you, to be honest. All right, let's look at this clip really quick. This is technically the 5th day update. News Nation, right? I can't see it on my glasses.
Yeah, News Nation.
Okay, cool.
Deanna Paul is here in studio with me, the trial attorney, former assistant DA here in New York. Welcome back, Deanna. So as Caitlin says, that it seems like the prosecution, in the term she used there, coercive control, but this idea that Diddy just was controlling everything in this woman's life, in Cassie's life. Pick up on that as they build their case. What did you make of it?
So one of the things that the prosecution has to prove is not, in terms of sex trafficking, they have to show not just how it happened, but what happened to get there. And so whether or not there was force and coercion or fraud.
Right.
So all of her testimony today really went directly to this idea of coercion, like you said. I think she talked about how he wanted to control every aspect of her life, from what she wore to what she did on a daily basis. He had like a security detail show up looking for her all of the time. And that goes to whether or not she felt free to leave and the level of control that he had over her.
So this idea that you're not consenting to something if someone's coercing you into doing something like that, for example, these freak-offs that everybody keeps talking about, she testified to that and described it this way. It basically entails the hiring of an escort and setting up this experience so I could perform for Sean. This is what Cassie said on the stand. Eventually it became a job for me pretty much. Then went on to say she, her stomach fell and she was just so much nervousness and confusion about that and felt like, like she said, it was a job, something she had to do, didn't have a choice. Is that effective for the prosecution?
It's what the prosecution has to do, but this goes back to what the defense opened on yesterday. They talked about the difference between consent versus coercion, and the point of their argument is that, these were two consenting adults, and even though there's some behavior that not everyone deals with on a daily basis, whether it's group sex or drug use or multiple partners, those are things that while they might make us uncomfortable because it's so far off from what most of us deal with day to day in our daily lives, discomfort isn't criminality. And the defense is going to keep hammering home this idea that immorality is not the same as illegality.
I want to bring into the
That's
conversation,
crazy.
Deanna will stay here in New York,
That's a good
Dominic
argument.
Patton, who is
Immorality
also in New
is
York,
the same
but down
thing
where
as
Caitlin
legality.
is. Welcome, Dominic, executive editor at Deadline. You were in the courtroom and covering the trial today, so I did want to get a firsthand perspective of what it was like in there today. What did you pick up inside the courtroom? What stood out to you?
Well, I have to say, my friend, it's a very, very subdued affair today. Casey Ventura, of course, has been on the stand for almost the entire day. She's 8 months pregnant. She's clearly emotionally exhausted already by the testimony she's having to give. And the prosecution are taking this in a very step-by-step manner. It's only in the later part of the day that we really saw them kind of unveiling what is clearly their ability to get into the sex trafficking claims, which are really the heart of this case. Up until now, there has been a lot of well, you're a grown-up, grown-ups consent to things, and that, unfortunately, didn't seem to be sealing the landing, or stick the landing, rather. Good. Now we're learning about the sex trafficking, about taking escorts over state lines, whole new ballgame.
That's an interesting observation. I want to come back to Deanna on that in a moment. But one more for you, Dominic, while you're there is that, how did she come off as a witness personally? And did you notice any interaction between her, members of the jury, Sean Combs? What about Cassie as a witness?
Well, I would say for one thing, Cassie Ventura is a witness, very soft-spoken, very emotional, crying frequently throughout her testimony. And let's be honest, these are incredibly, incredibly powerful and vulnerable things to be talking about her personal life. There was the naming of a series of the escorts, so about half a dozen of them. We saw their faces like mugshots up on the screens. Her with good eye contact with the jury, didn't really keep any eye contact with Sean Combs, which we've heard is maybe the first time that the two of them have actually even been in the same room in about 6 years. But I still think right now the prosecution has a problem. It's not against the law to be kinky. It's not against the law to be cruel or controlling. What is against the law is hitting people and violence. But Sean Combs isn't charged with domestic violence. So now we're seeing if their sex trafficking claims strategy is going to work. The next few days are going to be truly pivotal in this case.
I'll be back to you for one more, Dominic.
All right. What are your thoughts?
So I've had my own thoughts on this, and I have to be careful because, being a mental health counselor and then my brand and everything, I don't want to make it seem like I'm sympathizing with the person who's being the aggressor or they're portraying as the aggressor. All I can say from a psychological point of view and probabilities is that nothing is a yes or a no. That's a psychological game. Yes, no, dark or light, or just one or the other. This polarity that doesn't exist in life. That's just a mind game. I'm sure that in this case, Diddy was an aggressor. He's not a good guy, obviously. There's other stuff come about. How can so many things come out and then not have some degree of truth? But, Cassie, she may have regret on how things went. She may have been abused. I wouldn't doubt it. Maybe things got taken too far. But she's not an innocent little bunny in this neither. And there was recently a report that came out, and I was a little bit in shock that really added to this, to the degree is that, one time the phone records showed that her husband had called her and she was in the middle of having sex with Diddy. That just came out, I think, 36, 48 hours ago. And because of that, everybody has their price. Everybody has, how much did she enjoy the kinkiness? How much, to what extent, what was she getting out of it? Was there record deals? Was there money? Was there associations that could possibly lead to other financial gain? Who knows? But it's not just so black and white as one person's good and one person's bad.
Yeah.
There has to be a degree of both. I do think that Diddy is not some innocent little bunny or anything like that, but neither is Cassie at all. And I'm sure she was abused. I'm sure. But if her husband, I don't know if she was married at the time or not, was FaceTiming her while having sex with Diddy, what does that say about everything? People have to think. And there's no such thing as a polarity as one's innocent, one's guilty. There has to be something there in the middle. I know the legality makes it seem like that. That's the way the verdict is going to be made at the end, but it doesn't work like that. That's a mind game.
Well, talking about mind game, don't you, it's all speculation, but somebody taught Diddy those behaviors. He didn't come up with them, He was taught those behaviors by somebody else. I forgot. They said the name of the person. I remember some director or some manager or whatever, who gave him a big record deal, and then from there he blew up and became Diddy. But what if that same mind control MK Ultra that he was put under for him to enjoy all this degeneracy, he uses it on other people,
MK Ultra?
Cassidy. Yeah, I'm saying MK Ultra because that's what everybody understands is considered mind control, but it can be anything else. I don't know how else you can control somebody mentally. I don't know. Abuse, I would assume, is a way to do it. But how do we know that she really does like it if...
I want to make sure I say this. I saw a video where Cassie's outside an elevator and Diddy grabs her and drags her. That's pure abuse. That's domestic abuse. That's all those things.
But aside from the physical, the mental, what if there's mental abuse? Because when they met, she was really young. So for all we know, he groomed her. I
don't know the details of when they met or anything like that. I would actually know more about the Justin Bieber one. Obviously, Diddy is not some innocent little guy or anything like that. But regarding Cassidy, the part about, and obviously the courts, they're going through the courts. I would like to know more about how is it possible that her husband is FaceTiming her while she's having sex with Diddy. Yeah. And it takes so long for all this to come out. Yeah. What was in it for her at the time? And if it was a mind game and then there was somebody else, what happened to that guy, the husband? What was the mind game there?
Yeah.
So those are real questions. But let me tell you something, guys. Last Mary and this is wild. I never thought we were even going to talk about this. I never even knew we were going to talk about this.
It's the biggest stories right now,
Oh, wow.
It's open, you gotta be... This is crazy stuff. They were talking about urination, they were talking about all these wild things.
I wonder to what extent was enjoyment, maybe 10%, and then the other 90%.
But how do we know it was really enjoyment? She was maybe on drugs.
I'm not saying she was,
to
what extent was enjoyment because she's on drugs?
Exactly.
Or it was something she wanted to try initially and it got too far, or maybe it was none of those things, nothing that she did ever wanted to do, but maybe she just did it because she was promised acquaintances, shows, record deals.
I mean, it could be something simple as I just wanted his attention. I wanted his approval.
A great career. Look, Usher, I helped him come up. Look how he came. He's happy. You met him.
Bargaining chips.
Yeah, bargaining chips.
Yeah.
I helped Rick Ross, or I helped Meek Mill. Do you see it? Look, I'm bringing them over. They're about this.
Yeah.
Why are you not?
Yeah.
And it sometimes it can just go, and maybe you sacrifice a piece of yourself. And then you're so far, you want to get out, but now you can't.
I just don't want this to end up being another O.J. Simpson case.
Yeah. Oh,
where he doesn't, he's innocent, and then he makes a book a couple years later saying, if I would have done it, this is how I would have done it. Like, bro, come on. You know, that's what I don't want, because this is worse than O.J. Simpson. This is like a network of, you know, allegedly human trafficking and racketeering. So I don't know. And this, like, I am so convinced that this guy is like an Epstein, but like on a lower level. Epstein was higher level. That's why he got killed real quick. This guy, they haven't killed him yet for a reason. Because, you know, I don't know why they haven't killed him for a reason. Because if they can kill Epstein, they could kill this guy. Allegedly.
Yeah, for sure.
I gotta be saying that every fucking 5 seconds. Yes, he has way too much. And then, you know, if you recall, when they during Biden's term, when they went into his home and they raided his home, they got a lot of shit from there. Like, why? I mean, I don't know if that can be used in court. Maybe not, because the way it was done was not probably like fully legal or whatever. But like, you mean to tell me the FBI does not have all the secrets this guy was keeping?
Or who knows if they got things that they knew and they threw it away or made it disappear.
That's even
always
worse.
That's
even
always a question when it comes to anything involving government. You know, we like to think of government as for the public good, equality, fairness, but really government, that's an illusion. It's always about the self-preservation of itself. And if you have people that were associated with these Diddy parties, or whether these celebrities who have donated so much money to certain politicians and those politicians are putting their hand in everything, then things can disappear. Because the government controls the police, the judicial system, it controls the legislation it's able to create, and it controls a lot of channels that we don't even know about.
That's a problem, because we're the ones giving them money. So
government is the only entity that exists coercing others, meaning that it depends on it taking from us to exist.
Exactly. So because you take from us, you should be protecting us, because that's what we pay you to do. If you're not protecting us and you're hiding information that's very valuable to take down a guy that's probably connected to a bunch of other people that need to be taken down, then, you know, I don't know. Like, this guy needs to go down. I really hope he does. Everybody's saying he's going to be an O.J. Simpson. I'm like, please. There has to be some good in the system, you know? I don't want to have full fucking, cynical, you know, I don't want to be fully cynical. I want to have some hope that somebody will go down. I want somebody to have accountability, some damn accountability.
You want someone to be accountable, or do you want the truth?
Well, both. You know, I want him to be accountable, and you know, I want him to start ratting out the way we can find out what the fuck is really going on.
The truth, though, for sure.
Yeah, that's what really matters. Yeah. And if you can, you know, bargain the truth too, like, you know, use it as leverage to get people to do what they don't want to do, that works for me too. All right, so let's talk about immigration. Totally not the opposite of what we're talking about, but that's how this podcast is. So this is crazy. Undocumented woman in Florida fined for $1 million and something for ignoring a removal order that happened in like 2005. Very sad, because I talked about this 4 lives ago, and I said things are going to get really bad when it comes to immigration. Like, I'm for immigration. Obviously, we came here from Cuba, but we came here the right way. So I'm not for what happened during Biden's 4 years. But at the same time, I know that it's not just going to be cracking down on, you know, gangs. Mm-hmm. That's just not the reality. Because the millions of people that came in were not just gangs. That's like what? Maybe like 3%. maybe 5% to be like really, the reality is going to be a lot of people that wanted to come here for a better life, and they didn't want to wait because they know it takes a long time, and they chose to cut the line and get here the way they did. And that's a huge risk, but now this lady is paying the price, and it looks like she's going to be like what do you call that when you're using somebody?
The example.
Exactly. She's going to be the example to all the other illegal immigrants. Are like, if you don't do this, this will happen to you. So check this out really quick. And then give me your thoughts. Oh, sorry. I thought you were ready. I thought you were ready. I don't know. I think she's from Guatemala. Well, when I saw this, I was like, this is exactly what I was saying was going to happen.
Right now, at 6, an undocumented woman living here in South Florida is being told that she has to pay nearly $2 million for failing to leave the country. Good evening, I'm Elliot Rodriguez.
And I'm Lauren Pastrana. The mother of 3 was given 30 days to pay. CBS News Miami's Yvonne Taylor joins us live from Northwest Miami-Dade with the exclusive. Yvonne?
Yes, Elliot and Lauren, and this mother of 3 teenagers has told me that she chose to share her story and show her face because she wants people to know that she's not a criminal. Now, her attorney shared the story with CBS News because she wants the whole country to know why she's mother has been fined $500 a day for overstaying in the U.S. since 2005. And that's not all. We just talked to her a few minutes ago, and this is what this mom told us. Ever since that day, I live with anxiety. I can't sleep. I don't feel well. This woman, who we will call Maria, says she did not want to use her real name, concerned she could be targeted. But she does want people to know her story. She told us, I don't want to go back. She's the mother of 3 children who are American citizens. She asked us not to show them. Maria arrived from Honduras in February of 2005. 2 months later, she had an order to leave the country after not appearing at a hearing, but she never left. I asked her why she did not go to the hearing. I told the immigration officer I don't have any family in this country or a specific place to stay. She told me she entered the U.S. through California. I never received any document, and they did not know where I was going to be. This month, she received this letter at her house in South Florida. She has been fined for more than $1.82 million.
It says that the government could fine an individual, an undocumented individual, daily $500.
Michelle Sanchez is Maria's attorney. She showed us the document Maria received.
They're supposed to say on the date that she was advised, and this is blank because they never advised her of the penalties.
Okay.
So that's going to be my argument.
The 1952 Act has historically rarely been enforced, but in February, the Trump administration announced it will penalize people living in the U.S. illegally under that act.
What she has is an order of removal in her absence.
Is that still accumulating even today?
Yes. It's
so that
accumulating.
figure is increasing?
It could increase. For me, that is absolutely nuts.
Sanchez filed a motion to reopen her client's case last year under a policy of the Biden administration, giving ICE attorneys the discretion to reopen cases and lift removal orders. Have you ever been arrested?
That's it. All right. I have so much to say about this, but please give me your thoughts first.
Well, mine comes from kind of an American citizen standpoint, and immigration and open immigration, like it was allowed for so long, or every time someone comes in, and then they come in and then they're provided and promised a certain amount of welfare. You know, you're going to get this to stay, you're going to get this place to stay at, you're going to get this. That all, nothing is free in this world. Mm-hmm. That all comes at the expense of the people that pay taxes.
Right.
And the people that pay taxes are the producers. We produce, then the government, again, which is a coercive, a monopolistic, compulsive entity, sticks their hand in what is produced, and they take some. And then they keep some for themselves to fund, and then they give to others. And the reason that they create this welfare system And in this case, with immigration, the way it was done, giving them cards to spend money, a place to stay and whatnot, is because those people will eventually vote in favor of people that want bigger government.
So you believe in the whole reset theory? What is it called? The Great Reset?
Oh, absolutely. And this whole system that happens, which government under the illusion of public good, under the illusion of equality, under the illusion that it is necessary for it to exist to maintain law and order, of course,
right,
will take from the best, will punish the best producers, and reward either the least producers, which the ones that don't really provide a lot of value, and will reward illegal immigrants that by getting checks or whatnot. And then that way, everybody that gets something, which is more than the ones that produce, now they're going to vote for bigger government. And this system, it's a way for the government always to get bigger.
But isn't that kind of like, sorry to cut you off there, I just wanted to put in this. What's funny though is that they're leaving a government that is already too big to then come here and vote for a bigger government.
And I don't blame her. I don't blame her for wanting to come here.
No, I don't blame her. I blame the people that were in leadership when she came here.
Exactly. And I blame now with the change of leadership, now they're being punished.
Exactly. Yeah.
They're being punished, and they're not being punished because the benefits that they were getting are done. They're actually being punished by saying that she owes a certain amount that she would never be able to pay. She's never going to be able to pay that amount. There's some people that work their whole lives that they don't make that amount of money.
Exactly. Yeah.
So 100%. She's never going to be able to pay it. And now she has to leave under the fact that she came in here illegally, and it wasn't her fault. I mean, they were basically opening up that border. I saw bulldozers coming in, opening up a hole for the people to come in. I saw videos. I mean, that's why they were upset at Texas, because Texas wanted to close, which created more of an influx in other areas. And I feel bad for her. She has 3 kids. Like, what happens there? And unfortunately, and this is just, and you could tell me your observations, people want to come here because there's opportunity.
Right.
No matter what I say about this country, there's still the best private property rights here. Despite there being private property tax, because that is actually an infringement on private property rights. But there's still the best private property rights here compared to the rest of the world. So people, they don't think about it like this, but they want to come here because of that. And the income tends to be a lot higher than the rest of the world. Why? Because we are the world reserve currency of the world. That's something else that we take for granted. Over there where she's from in Honduras, she gets paid probably in their currency. And the moment that she gets paid, if she's planning to save money for the next year or two, she needs to find dollars real quick. And we take that for granted here because that step is done.
Right.
And people are looking to get dollars. They're not looking to get the Honduran currency. It's actually the opposite. So despite everything I'm saying, this is still the best private property rights that exist. And people want to come here. But if they're going to come and take advantage of the system, which is what happens as part of the assimilation process nowadays for a lot of immigrants.
I mean, she didn't assimilate. She was speaking her language the entire time. She's been here for 20 years or how long was it that she's been here? And she hasn't learned any English to be able to respond in English. That's unacceptable in my opinion.
But if you look, like, part of the assimilation process is for them to see how they're going to exploit getting free stuff. Not realizing that it's not free. It's by the people of this country.
Yeah, you're being subsidized. Taxpayers are subsidizing her.
Which then creates an environment that those that are working, those that are producing, those that are working their butt off, and they're not getting $1 in food stamp, not getting $1 in Section 8 housing, not getting $1 anywhere, they become very upset. And because they're sacrificing their scarcest resource, which is time to work. Exactly. So they can fund whatever life. But while they're working and the entity that we call government is sticking a hand in and grabbing a little something and then keeping it for themselves, but also distributing it back to vote for bigger government, so they can eventually vote for bigger government to individuals that come over the border.
But I don't know why you would want that if you want to maintain a capitalist society and private, company, private real estate. If you want privacy, which is what capitalism is free to be an individual person and create, your own thing, then why would you want a bigger government? Even if you're an American, I don't understand why Americans, how many people voted for Kamala Harris? It was millions of people that voted for Kamala Harris. I'm seeing that as millions of people who voted for a bigger government. Why? I don't understand. Why would you want that? You should want, why would you want to trust your money to the government instead of trusting yourself with your own money? That's how I see that,
Over time, we move further and further away from capitalistic society. The most capitalist society that someone can get is a natural order society. It's what they call private property anarchy society, anarchy, quote unquote, which is everybody's the king of their own land.
Okay.
On their land, no one can tell them what to do, and they can produce whatever they want on their own land. And on their own land, there is no such thing as public land, because if there is a need for self-defense, everybody has an incentive to fight for their own land if someone invades. That's, if you want to look at the best example of true free market, private property, anarchy, natural order society, look no further back than right before we wrote the Constitution. Right when those ships were sailing over here, there was no government here.
Right. Yeah.
There was nothing. But yet things naturally developed. There was food, people were producing, there was voluntary trade, which we were talking about earlier behind the cameras. There was a right to self-ownership to body, because private property rights begin at the body. Mm-hmm. And then they transfer out to other things. And all that was in existence. So you don't have to go so far back. But you can even go further back. And the Irish were also a natural order, free market, private property, anarchy society. And then also across Europe, you had all these smaller communities that formed, especially after Rome fell. After Rome fell, there was a huge void that needed to be filled. And it was private property anarchy. There was no taxes. It was the best producers that won. And then as natural elites form, a monarchy formed, because a king is going to promise you that there's going to be fairness. But everything is by the rule of the king. There is no public property. The property exists of the king and then your little private property if you have. And a king did not want to lose its best producers. And taxes never got higher than 5%. We accept taxes at 40% at a time in certain democracies, and in some it's more, because we say that the taxes are justified because we voted on them. It's for the public good. If everybody agrees, then it's okay. But what a lot of people don't realize is that the reason private monarchies only tax 5% was because only the people, a lot of times every monarchy was different, was because the only ones that got to vote were the best producers or the ones that had the most private property.
I definitely think only those who pay taxes should be voting.
And I would say that it's not only those who pay taxes that should be voting, and this may sound messed up, but to keep things fair, it should be, if you work as a public servant, you shouldn't be voting. If you get any food stamp, any sort of
any
social
subsidies,
you shouldn't be allowed to vote. You should only be allowed to vote if you're a producer paying taxes.
Exactly, I agree 100%.
And you're providing some sort, and you know, you.
That means even if it's a kid, if it's a 16-year-old who is already working and paying taxes, can vote. because they're not getting anything. They don't have an incentive to say I'm voting for this politician because I want to get this,
because I want to keep getting this, or I want them to continue to increase this. 100%. Because if I know you, I'm not gonna. And I have the ability to create a law, and I know you. So I'm not gonna create a law that's going to force you to pay me 20% of your salary because I know you. There's a certain element. But if I don't know you, I'm more willing. And that's what happens with voting, is that you don't know where your food stamp money came from. You don't know that person's situation. You just know that the money's coming to you. You don't know the person. So out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's a solution to the problem of making the government less big. And it goes with this because immigration and immigration and the type of immigration that was happening is forced integration meaning on you and I, because we're paying the taxes.
Yeah. And it's not like they're assimilating, because I know people personally who crossed the border illegally, got the food stamps, got everything, and they've been here already for 2+ years and they still can't speak English.
But
I have a huge problem with that, and they're family. So like people that I really don't know, like I just don't like. If you're coming to this country because you want a better life, the first thing you should focus on is how to freaking speak the language of the natives of the country. Like the people that are gonna give you the job, they're gringos, so you gotta speak gringo language. If you're not willing to speak gringo language, then you didn't come here for a real opportunity. You came here to leech off of the Americans. So like the whole like, oh, there's no real culture in America. Yeah, there is. It's just it's been diluted because, for example, Miami. When you're in Miami, they don't say good morning. Buenos dias. That shouldn't even be a thing. It should be good morning. And if you want to say buenos dias afterwards and you realize I speak Spanish, then we can talk Spanish. But I shouldn't have to speak to you in your first language. You should be speaking to me in this language, because English is my second language, but I was raised here. So I expect everybody I speak to speak to me in English, because we live in America. We don't live in a fucking other country.
And that's part of the assimilation process, right?
Exactly.
If you have let's say you don't have, like we talked about earlier, polarization is a mental game. It's a mind game. It's a yes or a no. So let's say that someone doesn't know that someone comes. It's not that we're saying we want no immigration.
Right.
It's that we need to have a vetted process where we're allowing immigration that are the best producers for this country.
Yeah.
Why is that? Because if they're not the best producers, then they become a burden on the people, the taxpayers here.
Exactly.
And we're not saying anything. We're actually talking psychological here, because we're talking about different social orders. Social orders meaning systems that exist. And this is a system. This is a social order that we're living in. The social order is actually, in this case, we live not even in a democracy. We live in a democratic republic. This is the social order that it is. And it's a tax burden on all of us. That's why it's forced integration. But if you had maybe 1% of the total population of the U.S. coming through the border, vetted, then it becomes easier to help them assimilate.
Exactly.
Because they now we can target them, teach them English, and then when next year comes around, we can do it again and again, and then little by little we're giving people opportunities, and they have a chance to maybe learn a skill in their country before they come, because now a lot of places have internet, and they have a chance to learn a skill, apply, and we make our system better so we can vet the best producers to come. Or people that have capital to invest. That's another way to do it. But if we just let anybody through the border, and we're letting 2 to 3% of the population, I don't really know what the immigration numbers were, but it was freaking crazy across that border from what I saw. It's hard for them to even assimilate. Exactly. And they're coming under the pretense that they're gonna get stuff for free to live.
Yeah.
At the expense of the taxpayers. And no one. And I want to make this clear, because I don't even know who watches this podcast. I don't know anything.
A lot of random people. Yeah.
I want to make it clear that the immigrations, that the people that are coming, they have a chance to be producers. They just can't come and expect handouts.
Right.
Because it's coming from somewhere, and it's coming from people that are working.
Yeah, I mean, we have already Americans that we need to get them to start working You know, because we have a lot of Americans that are also living off the government, who are able-bodied people who shouldn't be living off the government, and they are, because it's something that they're used to. They've been generation by generation living off of Section 8, so they think that's a normal thing. But if we need Americans to start working again and pay taxes and all that jazz, and we definitely can't assume that immigrants coming in are going to be the ones, leeching. Let's replace the Americans who are lazy into workforce, and let's bring in these illegals to kind of replace them. No, we need people to work, and if you can't work, it's because you're disabled or you're an elderly.
And
that's it.
And that's a government. Again, I keep bringing it back as government's the problem. It's the problem because they're the ones who are promised all these free stuff.
Yeah,
they're the
policies.
ones. They're
Suck.
the ones who misled. They're the ones who created that environment, and they control the public land, because that land is not private along that Texas border. It's the government who controls it, and all these other parts. It's public land, and they're the ones who are allowing them in, and they have trouble assimilating, and it's not fair to the taxpayers, because we're gonna have to pay for them.
Literally.
And that's a big problem. It's the government itself who creates these issues.
We're gonna talk about that at the end, but the fact that they allowed all these people to come in, right? And then that's already a security risk for people that are already here. That's one. And then two, you were lying about the fact that the border was open.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? Like, if you want open border, then just fucking say you want open border. Don't be like, oh no, the border's not open. Why are you gaslighting the American people? And then they were the ones gaslighting us because the border was open and they swore to God it was closed. And then all these media platforms now were backtracking on what they were saying. It's bro, you're on camera saying the border is not open when it was open.
And it's not the immigrants' fault. In a matter of fact, I think now that they're here, if it were up to me, and I feel bad, and I don't know, but they're here already. Some of them have been here for 2 years, let's say, under the Biden. It's hard to decide. I mean, Trump, the current administration is taking just get him out. But, again, it's the same situation. If Trump was shaking their hand.
We can't get him out. The Supreme Court already ruled that you can't just get him out.
Yeah, but closing the
borders. Due process.
Closing the border is a must. Maybe, not overdoing it with the welfare program, so they have an incentive
to work. Yes, agreed.
Because the family system is in the U.S., it's the families that are paying for it, the best producers again. And the best producers doesn't mean someone that just grows bananas. The best producers are people that spend their time to produce value, and the value that they produce, they get payment from it. Whether you agree or I agree, if someone should be raking in $100,000 a year doing their job, is irrelevant.
Yep.
The relevant is that someone's willing to pay them $100,000 to do it.
Exactly.
And that means there's a market for that, whatever they do.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's producing. And if they're gonna get taxed, so that money goes to other people instead of them being in their pocket for their kid, then that's messed up.
Yeah. Yes, it is. I mean,
Right. Because they're the ones who've been paying taxes for decades.
Exactly.
And it could go to their kid. It could have been saved. It could have been saved and invested. It could have been saved in money.
I mean, that's why they want to shrink the government. That's why they fire so many people in federal government, because they believe, at least this administration believes, you know how to handle your money better than we do. So we rather shrink the government. That way you can do whatever you want with your money versus us taking it from you.
There's the illusion that this current administration is shrinking the government. But if you look at their spending, they're just expanding spending and maybe substituting a few jobs that used to be needed and that could probably be automated either through AI,
right,
or through maybe it's just completely not needed anymore and they're just roaming around and they can cut costs. So it gives the illusion that they're cutting the federal government by workforce numbers. But if you look at spending and how much they're spending and all those things, they're not really cutting that big.
I mean,
probably be on. Sorry.
Nah, it's all right.
But I mean, it's not like they can really cut that big. You need Congress for that, and Congress isn't going to cut big. you know. I mean, they try to pass the big beautiful bill, and they got blocked by Republicans in Congress. So like
the big beautiful bill.
Yeah, the big beautiful bill. You know how he likes to market everything. Yeah. And so if they can't pass a bill that he wants them to pass, then, you know, they're not going to be able to actually cut significant amount of federal spending.
I've never seen, and I read a lot. I've been reading a lot. I don't know a time that a government actually gets smaller. It actually consolidates and stays consolidated.
Okay. Yeah.
I've never seen it, and you
don't think we'll ever go back to that time where like it was like McKinley time, where we were just running on tariffs and there was no income tax?
The McKinley time, what time?
Yeah, like the President McKinley, he was like the big tariff guy. So we were just running on. He was big on gold standard, so it was just tariffs, no income taxes, and we were making so much money at that time.
So one of the periods, and I'm assuming this is the period, was between 18 and the current administration has brought it up, and I take a lot of pride in knowing this knowledge. So during the 1806 after the Civil War until the 1910 or so, right? That's the period that you're talking about. At some point McKinley was there and he was big on the gold standard.
Can you check it? Because I'm terrible with I'm good with certain dates, but not presidential dates. President McKinley, check what year. He didn't last that long. Presidents at that time didn't live that long, except FDR, you know, because he wanted to be immortal and live forever. I just know he was. You want to
know what year he ran?
Yeah, what year he ran? What was his time frame? Because Abraham Lincoln is the one who's, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he's the one who started income tax.
But he did it to fund the war.
Exactly, right. And then he removed it afterwards. But then after that, Congress passed the 16th Amendment for taxes. So
he ran in 1896 and was reelected in 1900. So he ran from 1897 to 1901.
So after the Civil War, there was a big boom in the U.S. and it was paid by tariffs. And there was no income tax, but we were under the gold standard.
Right.
And when you have, and I hope your audience cherishes this, and it's not my opinion, it's just what happened, and you could use your own deductive logic to reason it, is that the reason things actually got cheaper during that time, and the government had no debt, but things got cheaper for the consumer, and there was very little government intervention regarding taxes and things of that nature, was because there was a gold standard. When you have sound money, meaning money that is being used that is not government controlled, like gold, no matter how much you hate it, you know that it can only be inflated at around 2% a year. That's it. It can never be inflated more. So as the gold supply gets bigger over time, you cannot mine more at a faster rate. But the dollar is inflating at 8% a year according to credit expansion, sometimes even as much as 10%. It's because the way they measure CPI is false. So if you're getting paid in gold, all of a sudden that bottle of water may cost, I'm just throwing it out there, 1/10 of an ounce. This is an example. This is not, but a bottle of water. But if you wait 10 years, now for that same 0.1 ounce that you use, you could probably get 5 bottles of water. So things actually get cheaper for people on a sound money standard. And back then, the industries being involved, there was no central bank.
Interesting.
So since there was no central bank, the system didn't have to depend on debt. So the only way you can open up a business, you, Mary, could open up your business was if you worked, you saved, and then you used what you saved to open up that business. And the cool thing is, while you're saving, what you're saving that money in is actually gaining value over time. Now it's not like that. Mary, you save, but you're saving in dollars. So things are actually getting more expensive the longer you hold those dollars, because there's a debt system being created, because the central bank is just the nucleus. Then comes the banks that are built on top of the bank. It's like It's like a cell. Like the central bank is the nucleus, then it's the banks surrounded by it, and the whole system is based on debt. So with McKinley and after the Civil War, and we had literally a deflationary period, but still the GDP grew, was because it was a sound money standard. Trump makes it seem like it's because we use tariffs. And yes, there was no income tax. It's true. Yes, we were using tariffs, but we didn't have a debt-based system. We were using sound money. That's not the case right now. And that's not going to be the case, I don't know if ever again, because after 1914, the Congress voted to have the Federal Reserve, and ever since then, things have been downhill. And I say downhill, it's because the dollar has lost 99% of its value. And because it's lost 99% of its value, that's why housing, someone that bought a house in 1970, it was worth $40,000, but now the house is worth $2 million. It's not because the house got more expensive, it's because the dollar devalued so much. I'm sure there's a component of supply and demand. Maybe the population growth went really fast, but trust me, the population growth didn't go that fast compared to the production of houses. I think there's a chart for that. And you don't have to take my word. You guys can look it up, and so the sound money, and with McKinley, so when Trump says about the tariffs, it's not legit. It's not the way he makes it seem.
It just makes me wonder, like, if they knew that gold was what's anti-inflation pretty much, then why remove it? I forgot who did it. Who's the one who removed the gold standard?
Wasn't it
I think it was Nixon officially.
Was it Nixon?
But there was already issues with FDR. He made like having gold illegal or something like that.
So the gold, there was different. We had gold. We had the gold standard. Then in 1914, I don't know who the president was, but the Congress voted, and the Senate voted using deceptive tactics to create a central bank. Then the war happened. Of World War I started, and England took themselves off the gold standard, and those that were holding gold in the banks, they were not allowed to redeem for their gold.
Damn.
Well, that was during World War I, and then after World War II, something similar happened in the U.S. But in 1933, gold was outlawed in the U.S.
Right,
and at that point, the central bank, remember, had already been created in 1914. So they had a huge element in taking the gold, and from the people, you were threatened, like government always does with coercion.
Right.
I'm going to imprison you. I'm going to attack, And they took the gold. After World War II, the whole global system of money was effed up because everybody had devalued their currency by a lot, and it couldn't be at par with gold anymore. So before, maybe let's say the wars, though, there could be $1 was 1 ounce of gold, let's say, or 1 German franc or French franc or whatnot was 1 certain amount of gold. Well, there was so much dollars or their government currency printed that it couldn't come back.
Compensate. Okay.
And people were going to want their gold. So Bretton Woods was formed. And there was this new system where it was gold, the dollar, and then all the other currencies. But Nixon terminated that because during the Vietnam War, we started lending money. We started expanding credit. And when that happened, a lot of people wanted their gold back. And so certain governments, I think the French were one of them, they were already sending a ship to collect the gold that the U.S. was holding, their gold that the U.S. was holding, because we were now the center of where the gold was being held. And Nixon immediately took us off the gold standard and instead said that moving forward, the gold that we were holding for other countries was ours, but they were going to give them dollars instead. And something just cool, just to let you know, before World War I, there were only 2 democracies in Europe. But after World War One, which was really an ideological war,
Right.
all the monarchies started to fall, and it was just democracies that started being formulated across and that was kind of part of the deal for the U.S. to be involved in World War One. So World War One was really an ideological war, and wow, that was a lot of information that I just shared.
He was like, "Yo, I just downloaded a lot."
Yeah,
Yeah, no.
yeah.
I mean, maybe we can go back to that, somehow. Yeah, I don't know how, because I'm not an expert in this. I'm just asking questions, but it happened in the past. It can happen again. History repeats itself.
More often than not.
Like it's always the bad parts of a history that repeat itself. This is a good part that I would like for it to come back. Let's bring that back. Yeah.
The war between Trump and the Federal Reserve is apparent, and everybody in the finance world and economic world talks about it because he's
lazy.
Because he's the first person that actually openly criticizes the Federal Reserve. He openly will say that they should be raising or lowering interest rates. That why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they doing that? And that's a problem for the Federal Reserve because they've always ran the scene behind the scenes. They control the monetary system of the world because we're the world reserve currency. And, Trump really has tried pushing them to do certain things and they don't like it. And there's speculation that the reason they haven't lowered interest rates to make Trump's plan work is because he's so outspoken about them.
I mean, they're also very left-leaning because they cut interest rates during the campaign to make the other side look good when they didn't do it. When they were supposed to do it, they didn't do it. And then they did it then, which is what I think the guy from, he's a tech guy. Maybe you know his name. He's in the cabinet. I forgot his name.
Elon Musk.
No, not Elon Musk.
No.
I would have known him. The other guy. He's an older dude. He's bald. Fuck. He's a billionaire. Like all the other ones. They're all billionaires. I know they're all billionaires. Damn it. Sputnik. Lutnick.
Oh,
Lutnick.
I would have never guessed that.
Yeah, sorry. It's like the name is weird. So Lutnick said that they decided to cut rates at the worst time to cut rates, and after that, like Trump was like, "Oh, okay, I see whose side you're on. Okay, so now I'm gonna really like call you out."
This guy we here talking about.
Yeah, that guy.
Howard Lutnick.
Lutnick. I know last names, not first names. Yeah, that guy. So I mean.
Alright, guys, I'll show chat real quick.
Oh yeah. I was gonna tell you. What's the chat saying?
No, we're just talking. DJ Lockdown's in there.
What it do? DJ Lockdown, thank you for showing up. Jose, thank you for showing up. As always, I appreciate you. Those who are behind the scenes that are not commenting and just watching, like, share, and subscribe. There's a lot of those who like to just lurk and they don't subscribe. It takes a couple seconds to subscribe, guys. Couple seconds. All right, so we're talking about the economy, so let's just move on to it. Treasury Secretary explains tariffs can lower inflation. I like this guy. I found out recently that he was working with George Soros. He was George Soros's like economist or whatever he was. I'm not sure. Maybe you know more about that than I do. He's into bonds. He's a bonds dude. So he was handling that for George Soros in the UK. And they pretty much betted against the UK's economy, from my understanding, and made a lot of money. And Trump was like, well, you know what you're doing. I want you in my circle. So, I mean, I don't like that he was working with George Soros because that guy's fucking evil. But he knows what he's doing. So,
to these people, and you're getting them now, like when they're in positions of power, to them, it was money.
Yes.
It was always money, and that was the name of the game, especially what you're talking about was the crisis that UK faced in their currency. And that's what George Soros exploited from the UK. And the currency, it's difficult I can't even explain it properly, but something was dwindling in their system. He took advantage of it. And when it caused like a currency drop. And it caused a huge issue in their economy because it was their currency at the time. And when it comes to the tariffs in particular, there's three things Americans take pride in, whether they realize it or not. We were pioneers. I mean, a lot of the original Americans, there was a lot of people that came that never made it.
Yeah.
There was a lot of people that died by the conditions here. They were pioneers. They started a natural order society like before and then the Constitution. And the Constitution is really supposed to be about the government protecting our liberties. To put it just to put it frank.
Or better said, to limit the government to give us freedom.
While limiting the government.
Yeah.
To protect our liberties.
Right.
To protect our liberties, you limit the government because they knew that government was a cancer. It's a parasitic, monopolistic, compulsive entity.
Yes, it is. 100%.
They could, and the four things that the Constitution was meant to protect was our right to self-ownership, which is body, freedom of speech, freedom of movement, our right to private property, our right to production on our private property, and of course, voluntary trade. Among some other things, you had the, part of protection of our liberties that we can own guns because they knew that you could. But those four things are the bedrock of a free economy. Tariffs are a way for the government to get control, or this famous word, unilateral basis, to get funds for trade. And they could get to control the market economy within their borders, and also, especially in our case, being in the US, affect outside, because we're the world reserve currency. We're a consumer economy. Mm-hmm. China's an exporter economy.
Yeah, that's why they tanked after the tariffs.
Yeah, and just to put that, and we're a consumer economy. Consumer spending and government spending are the two main ways that our GDP are the two biggest influence on our GDP. For China, is their export, and then there's and also we have investments. Those are the four variables to measure GDP: investments, imports, consumer spending, and government spending. And the US, we're a huge consumer economy because we're the world reserve currency. We have financial products here. So they're using tariffs to either bring people to their knees or to make favorable deals for the US. But it's not for you and me as consumers. It's for the government. To bring in, if you notice their wording, they talk about bringing industries back that make the US vulnerable. And it depends how you look at it. If you're really about a free society, a capitalist society, then you want voluntary trade to exist. And I think we were using earlier the example of shirts from Vietnam, and that's one of the tariffs. If I like shirts from Vietnam that cost $5, but that same shirt cost me here in the US $12, I'm gonna buy the shirt from Vietnam because they're Maybe I sacrifice. I like that shirt for whatever reason. It comes from my consciousness. So I take the action and I buy that shirt. But if you create conditions now where that shirt is going to be is going to be a lot higher because there's a tariff, now you're forcing my hand. Now I'm either forced to buy this $12 shirt from the US, or maybe they make the tariffs at a certain level where the shirt also costs $12, right? Maybe I can't afford neither shirt now, because I was able to afford it because it was $5 before, and I valued that shirt was at least $5. Because if it was $8, I might not value it, but I know that for $5 for sure, and I would buy it. So the tariffs are not such a great thing for consumers, but it's a great thing for the state. The state meaning the government.
The government, right.
Because now they're bringing industries back. And if you are one of the shirt producers in Vietnam where you were buying the shirt, it sucks that the shirt's going to cost more. So now you got two options. Either you find a way to make the shirt even cheaper over there, so when you bring it over, it's your profit margins are, or you open a factory here.
Which is what they want.
Yeah, which is what they want. And so, you can be, there was two options in the election, Biden or Trump. And
or Kamala and Trump.
Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, that's right. And I would say that it was, if I could vote again, I would vote for the same person, because even if I don't agree with the tariffs, it's But it just know that it stops consumers' choices. It stops consumers spending. And I think that's what they want. Maybe not as far as choices, but the tariffs create an opportunity where now someone has less choices and things are going to cost a little bit more if they're produced here. Now they're more enticed to save money. And if they're saving money and they're holding dollars, maybe the money isn't inflated as much. And it keeps the currency more within the domestic. There's a lot of variables. There's so many variables.
I think you're onto something there.
To the decisions that they make.
I think you're onto something there.
But because they keep talking about a trade surplus. Like as if I want the $5 shirt from Vietnam, I'm buying the shirt for $5, and now there's a trade surplus of $5 because we sent $5. But really, a true economist knows that the value is not in the $5 sent over there. It's actually in the product. That's the whole reason there's money. There's the whole reason the trade is happening.
Right. I want to buy the product, and I'm giving you what it's worth.
Yeah. It's actually, the value is actually in the product or the service, not in the money. But they view it as, since we're the world reserve currency, we have no choice here to view it as, a trade surplus, because to them the U.S. the U.S. has to value it as, the dollar is.
So Walmart said that they're going to have to increase their prices because of what you're saying. So he disagrees with Walmart. So take a look at this really quick. I have to put my glasses on and off. Can't see.
Walmart announced this week it's going to have to raise prices on some goods, and they blame Trump's tariffs, particularly the tariffs on China. Here's the CEO. Take a listen.
We will do our best to keep our prices as low as possible. But given the magnitude of the tariffs, even at the reduced levels announced this week, we aren't able to absorb all the pressure given the reality of narrow retail margins. We're positioned to manage the cost pressure from tariffs as well or better than anyone. But even at the reduced levels, the higher tariffs will result in higher prices.
So President Trump went on Truth Social and says Walmart should eat the tariffs. In other words, not pass on the prices to consumers. Doesn't that inherently serve as an acknowledgement that tariffs are essentially a tax on consumers? Because initially President Trump said, well, other countries, that's not true. Countries pay for the tariffs. But here we have a perfect example. China gets these tariffs, and then Walmart has to raise its prices, and consumers end up paying for them.
Well, Jake, in essence, what you're saying taxes are inflationary, so let's pass the Trump tax cuts, and that'll be disinflationary.
This guy.
If we continue that line of thinking.
I don't know that you can put me on as endorsing anything, but go ahead.
Let's just keep everything consistent. I did speak to Doug McMillan, who I have a very good relationship, yesterday, just to understand what he had to say. And understand that came from an earnings call. On an earnings call, because of SEC requirements, they have to give the most draconian case. So Walmart will be absorbing some of the tariffs. Some may get passed on to consumers. But the other thing that's happening is that inflation is down. We had the first drop in inflation in 4 years under President Trump. The other thing that Doug mentioned to me is for his consumers, for his buyers, the most important thing are gasoline prices. And this administration has gotten gasoline prices down. Service prices are down. So overall, I would expect inflation to remain in line. But I don't blame consumers for being skittish after what happened to them 4 years under Biden. We had the worst inflation in 40 years.
All right, thank you. Thoughts?
So he's a good speaker to dodge that curveball, but of course, it's like what we're just talking about. It's inflationary to consumers, and you have less choices. And just like Amazon was going to put to justify their price increases and put a tariff, and obviously Trump made the call to Jeff Bezos.
Fuck, you're not, bro.
yeah, for real. Now this is the same thing.
Yeah.
And they're just saying, you guys swallow it, the business. But someone like Walmart, just like grocery stores, they're operating on a 3% margin. A lot of people don't know this. When they say, "Oh, food prices are off the roof," it's the companies, and we're gonna
But
check
doesn't
them.
Walmart sell a bunch of stuff? They don't just sell groceries. They sell clothes.
They sell clothes,
everything.
but these retail stores, they don't operate, unless it's clothing companies. They don't operate on such a high margin on their goods. For every, let's say $1, they may be making 3 to 5 cents. We think that it's so much, but it's not. And if their products are coming from, let's say, China, and there's 100% tariff, that's a double the increase. It doesn't matter if gas drops a lot. So the boat to get over here, the energy it costs the boat to cross is less because the gas is cheaper. That's true. That's actually a bigger variable than what we give it credit for. A lot of times as consumers, we don't really go deep into this, but that the product itself costs now double. And Walmart, who, if you think about it, who's shopping at Walmart? People that don't have a lot of money. The people going to Publix, they may be willing to pay an extra $1 to get 5 sausages, an extra $1 here, an extra $2 here to get the product that they want. But the people shopping at Walmart, they're actually the ones that don't have a lot of money. And if you're doing a tariff and now someone that doesn't have a lot of money that's shopping at Walmart now is going, and now they may not be able to buy as much, Walmart still wants them to at least go there, and they need an excuse. So what do they try to do? Explain the tariffs. But they're saying no, that Walmart needs to swallow it up.
But don't you also think it's kind of like politics? Because it's like, why do you have to say it like that? Like, there's a way the guy was a CEO, right?
Who,
the Walmart guy? No, the Walmart dude was CEO. Yeah. As a CEO, like, you should, there's ways to word things where it's not so, like, negative, Like, why would you say it in a way where it's so negative, where you clearly are against the tariffs because of the way you're, because of how you said it? There's so many other ways he could have said that. Like, oh, we don't want this to go up in price, and we will do our best to not get them to have to pay, but we don't really know, or, but not be so like, yeah, they're going to have to pay more because tariffs are screwing us, so we're going to have to essentially screw them,
I think Besson said that was in an earnings call.
Yeah, that's why he said it was the most draconian.
So if it's in an earning call, it was towards investors. He wasn't saying that to the consumers that shop at Walmart.
Yeah, but the consumers are hearing it.
Yeah, the consumers are hearing it, but consumers don't listen to earnings call. Like the ones listening to the earning calls are the ones that have money in the Walmart stock, and he's sharing to the investors what is to be expected, and there's no other way to sugarcoat it. The prices of things and the options are going to go down, and prices are going to go up on the cheaper products. The products that are already made in the US, they're going to get an advantage because they're going to be bought. And if there's tariffs coming, maybe the good coming from China is still cheaper than the American product, but now it's at a differential rate where it's more acceptable to a consumer, and they say, oh wow, I want to buy the American product. But nothing has ever been stopping the consumer from buying an American product. If you're American and you want to buy American products, nothing has ever stopped you. And that's the whole thing. But forcing that's my whole thing. It has to be voluntary trade. It's about freedom of the individual more than anything else. The person buying that doesn't have a lot of money, now they're gonna have to buy less things. Not only is there less choices, it's just less.
But that was already happening during Biden's time.
But it wasn't because of tariffs. It was because of how much
inflation was fucking up the roof.
Because to
a consumer, what is the difference? At the end of the day, I'm still paying a shit ton of money for something that shouldn't cost that much money. So like that's why to me it's like tariffs, inflation. I'll take the tariffs over the inflation.
The tariffs are like a medium-term inflation, and if their plan works out over the long term, things will get cheaper because it'll work. But that'll take a long time because supply chains take a long time.
Well, you are a long-term investor, so am I. Yeah. I am looking for the long haul here. So let's hope for the best.
True,
yeah, I mean, if you're an investor, you don't care about the short term, you care about the long term. So I'm okay with it. If there's vision to this, which I'm assuming there is, because he's a vision guy and we are too, we'll see what happens. But talking about that, we're going into like perfect, like everything's
You guys are both
synchronizing.
super cool. You, Mary, and Laz, you guys are super cool. And this whiskey's good, man. Good, you guys.
So Trump makes deals with the Middle East. So I told you what I thought about that. I'm going to tell the audience now. So I think a couple of things are happening. A, he's bringing trillions of dollars into America, so that's not a bad thing. Maybe the way he's doing it is, controversial, but more money is good. And then at the same time, because he's working with these companies, with these countries that are kind of hostile, or they used to be hostile, he's isolating Iran, which I think is a good thing. They should be isolated because Iran needs to be changed. Obviously, they need to do that themselves. We can't force them to change. But they used to be a more democratic, liberal society in the 1970s. And then just like Cuba, they went down the drain. So, and at the same time, I also think this is kind of like showing Israel, you're not holding America by the balls, because now we are going to be partnered with these Middle Eastern countries who you have issues with. So, but again, this is what I think. This is just me talking shit. But what do you think?
Well, with I'm not too knowledgeable to speak on all that, but my best friend is Jewish, so that's virtual signaling, right?
That's maybe, like saying, yeah. I have friends that are black. I'm not racist.
But
that's funny. I don't have any best friends that are Jewish, but I have a lot of friends that are Jewish.
But we tend to think a special interest for a particular political candidate. Well, when we view it from, instead of individuals, and we view it on a state level, state is another word of saying government in a libertarian format.
Yeah.
There's other governments that are interest groups that fund our government, that there's special interests.
Yeah.
And Saudi Arabia and Israel, they always, I don't know enough about that region or anything, but they're both countries that have special interest or special interest groups with the United States, especially Saudi Arabia, because it was in 1974 where the petrodollar deal was struck, and Saudi Arabia was the supplier of the petrol. And there's a lot of other things that curtailed that deal, like protecting the strait and all this. And nowadays, with Israel and where it is on the map, there's a lot of special interest there. I think that the visit for the Saudi Arabia is nothing more than one state making strong allies with another state and continuing a partnership that exists.
You don't think it could be also a way of creating diplomacy?
Yeah, diplomacy, delegating. And when it comes to Iran to Saudi Arabia, it seems like a wild horse. They're wild. Right. They're not. I from my understanding and what my friend explained to me is that they're not part of the same. They may be. It's like Christianity, but there's different subsections of Christianity. Well, for them, it's the equivalent of that. There's Saudi Arabia, and then Iran is a whole.
Yeah, Saudi Arabia is, they're more open to allowing women to, drive and read and basic things that I think all humans.
Which is recent. Their whole driving thing is recent because as of 2015, they weren't allowed to drive, but now I think they are. But Iran is like a different, and Saudi Arabia has difficulty controlling that region.
Yeah, no, Iran is. It's very, what happened in Iran happened in Cuba. Same thing, the prosperous country, and then a regime came in, screwed over the country, completely brainwashed their society to think that was okay, and everything went down to shit after that. The same thing, just in a different way. With Cuba, it was just to destroy the country altogether. And then with Iran, it was more like Sharia law, changing everything into Sharia law.
And remember that how many in this little trip that he may notice how he went to Qatar, which is one of the richest, if not per person, I think it's the richest nation in the world. you grab all the money in Qatar that exists and then get all the people in Qatar that exist, and it's per person, it's the richest nation pound for pound. And there's a lot of investments that he, by going over there and signaling, and that's a transfer of capital coming from those regions over here.
Right.
And to invest in here, and to invest here means to make factories where now people have the possibilities of getting a job in whatever industry.
Was it Qatar that was going to invest in AI?
But
one of them was going to invest in AI.
But one of them was like $1 trillion something. I don't know, and the other one was about the same. So that's a lot of money coming in to invest. So I don't. The thing is, they don't say what the investment is. Are they just going to put it into the market? Are they going? What is the investment? Are they going to create factories?
I think Saudi Arabia is we're going to take a look at it now. But Saudi Arabia is an arms deal because they want more military equipment, and I think Qatar is AI. They want to invest in AI because they want America to be known for their AI, not China. So they're investing in American AI.
And if they're investing in American AI, then that means they want a piece of that technology.
Right. Yeah.
And the progress or whatever it brings with it. And that's probably why Elon Musk was probably there too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because that FSD and Grok and all this.
Yep.
And so
invest in AI, bro. Invest in AI. All right, let's start on this really quick.
Extraordinary moment where you had the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia with President Trump and Syria's interim president. Help us understand the significance of that meeting taking place, of a U.S. president sitting down with somebody who was once linked to Al-Qaeda and was on most wanted lists here in the U.S.
Crazy. Honestly, it was quite unbelievable. It was really a historic moment, and probably the moment from this trip to witness those three standing side by side. It would have been inconceivable to think that that picture would have taken place 6 months ago. For so long, Syria was under the stronghold of Iran. Lebanon became increasingly under the stronghold of Iran via Hezbollah. And now, many months later, they're all on the back foot. The Assad regime is gone. Hezbollah is severely diminished. Hamas is severely diminished. And therefore, it is an opportunity for Saudi Arabia to exert its influence in the region and for the U.S. to ensure that its allies in the GCC are the ones who are going to have further an increasing amount of diplomatic leverage. So that is the reason that President Trump came out with this big announcement in Saudi Arabia about the possible removal of Syrian sanctions. And he also credited Crown Prince MBS and, by the way, Turkish President Erdogan for getting him to make that decision.
This is the big take from Bloomberg News.
All right, what are the next one really quick?
I think we're getting close to maybe doing a deal without having to do this. There's two steps. There's a very, very nice step, and there's a violent step. The violence like people haven't seen before. And I hope we're not going to have to do this. I don't want to do the second step. Some people do. Many people do. I don't want to do that step. So we'll see what happens. But we're in very serious negotiations with Iran for long-term peace. I think we're getting close to maybe doing a deal without having to do this. There's two steps. There's a very, very nice step, and there's a violent step. The violence like people haven't seen before.
Put it again, babe.
And
No,
It's still, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Whoever did that edit did a terrible job. All right, continue.
I hope we're not going to have to do this. I don't want to do the second step. Some people do.
Yeah, it's the same thing. They just, wow, okay.
Yeah, I was like, I know I'm not going crazy.
No,
All
you're
right,
right. No,
what's the...
But it's the same video.
He has a tendency to repeat himself, so I thought, oh, he was just repeating.
He does the weave, guys, the weave. All right, third one, and then we can continue on this conversation. Yeah.
As in Syria, which has seen so much misery and death, there is a new government that will hopefully succeed in stabilizing the country and keeping peace. That's what we want to see in Syria. They've had their share of travesty, war, killing, many years. That's why my administration has already taken the first steps toward restoring normal relations between the United States and Syria for the first time in more than a decade. And I'm very pleased to announce that Secretary Marco Rubio will be meeting with the new Syrian foreign minister in Turkey later this week, and very importantly, after discussing the situation in Syria with the Crown Prince, your Crown Prince, and also with President Erdogan of Turkey, who called me the other day and asked for a very similar thing, among others, and friends of mine, people that I have a lot of respect for in the Middle East. I will be ordering the cessation of sanctions against Syria in order to give them a chance at greatness.
That place is crazy. The submarines are huge. Huge. Insane. How much money they have.
Oh, what I do for the Crown Prince. The sanctions were brutal and crippling and served as an important function, nevertheless, at the time. But now it's their time to shine. It's their time to shine. We're taking them all off, and they're going to have, I think they're going to have, based on the people and the spirit and everything else that I'm hearing about. So I say good luck, Syria. Show us something very special like they've done, frankly, in Saudi Arabia. Okay? They're going to show us something special. Very good people. Everywhere we can, my administration is pursuing peaceful engagement, offering a strong and steady hand of friendship to all that will take it in good faith. Together, we have made unprecedented strides and tremendous progress, and we're still just at the dawn of the bright new day that awaits for the people of the Middle East, the great, great people of the Middle East. If the responsible nations of this region seize this moment, put aside your differences and focus on the interests that unite you, then all of humanity will soon be amazed at what they will see right here in this geographic center of the world.
In that same video, it's like a too long video, so I just got that clip. But in that same video, he pretty much calls out the neocons who pretty much try to go over there and force them to change their ways into our ways. And then he also called out the liberal non-profit organizations that do the same thing. And that's probably the first president ever to have done that. So I was like, I mean, a lot of people weren't happy about it. The guy who used to be one of the people that changed regimes, I don't know his name. He looks like he's related to Hitler because he has a little Hitler stash, and he's an old dude. He's a known neocon. He did a debate with Vivek. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
John something.
Yes, you know what I'm talking about.
John B. I forgot his last name.
Something with yes, and then he got his security removed or whatever. Him and Fauci got him removed at the same time. Well, obviously he wasn't happy about this because the Middle East are evil people and we should never work with them ever. But I like this idea because I think this is the first time ever. I mean, you're more of a history buff than I am, but this is the first time ever where we have a president who uses economy as diplomacy, and it's not just all talk.
Well, regions have to make their own decision. And every country is a region. Countries are just invisible lines that we create, and they represent regions, and that's a whole nother region over there, and different regions within a bigger region. Right? That's how everything is in life. It depends how you want to look at it. It's a bigger circle and a smaller circle, and Saudi Arabia is the dominant force in that region, and they've been there. The dominant force in that region for a long time, and that's their problems over there, and that's their issues over there, and for the president to come out and say, listen, this is going to be resolved he's loosening legislation over there by saying we're gonna open this again. This was restricted before.
Yep.
That's huge.
Yeah, it is.
And that's their region. They know what's best for that region.
Exactly.
We don't. What we think is best is it comes from our American mind, from
Mm-hmm.
our experiences, from our Western way of viewing things. It's a different world over there.
Yeah.
And I've never been to the Middle East, only on plane rides where we stop, because I went to Southeast Asia and I've been in Europe, but I've stopped in Qatar on the airport, and just getting off the airport, I never got out of the airport, I never left the airport, but it's a different world over there. And those people that live in that region know what that region needs.
Right.
Not war.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, nobody needs war, you know. Nobody needs war, except those who profit off of it.
And if someone comes and dominates me, because let's say they're 7 feet tall, 350 pounds or something, the moment that their back gets turned, I'm trying to always think about how I'm going to escape their aggression. I'm not going to want to submit.
Right.
I'm only going to try to live. I'm only going to submit to try to live, but I'm always looking to see how I unsubmit. That's the same thing when America gets involved. Let's say in Iraq, those people may submit. Those people you can't force changes in culture like that. And that's why they know what's best.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents on it.
Heck yeah, I mean, and they're slowly evolving, so you know it shows that they understand that there should be some type of evolution.
I will say one thing though, to have an army like the U.S. does increases our chance to always use it. And
what, you talking about war or what do you mean?
War in general.
Okay.
To have secrets, CIA, FBI, secret agencies. To have something increases our chances to use it. If I have $10, I have more of a chance to use it than someone who has $0 because I have the $10. So if I want to buy a candy or something, I'm more enticed to use it. Oh, I was going to save the $10, but I got 10. The candy costs 99 cents. I'm more willing to use it. That's the same thing with America, with everything, with Army, with CIA, with this. If we have it and we're paying for it, then we're more willing to use it. And this is one of those rare cases where it seems like, although he's still supplying arms and stuff, which is a production here, but that's at least it's not it's not direct intervention like Iraq or Afghanistan.
Exactly,
right?
and they asked for it. They wanted the arms deal because they want to. Their military is non-existent. They don't have a military. The Mideast doesn't have a military, so if there's money that we can make and they are voluntarily asking us for that, then we shouldn't say no.
Absolutely.
So this is the last one. Trump passes executive order to lower costs of pharmaceutical drugs. People were not happy about this. I don't know why, because we pay a lot for drugs compared to the rest of the world, and their excuse is, because we make more money than they do. But I don't think that's a good excuse, because the people that rely on these drugs are, for the most part, elderly people that are relying on Social Security, and Social Security, is not, they're not giving them thousands of dollars a month. You're on a fixed budget when you have Social Security. So I think this is a good thing. What I don't understand is why there's only one Democrat who is actually saying, let's put this into law right now. And that's Senator, he's an Indian dude. He represents Silicon Valley in Ro Khanna. So Ro Khanna is a senator in Silicon Valley in California, and he's the only one who said we need to pass this into law, because executive orders are not laws. They can be undone. I mean, Biden did it, so.
Do you mind if I ask though, because this is good for people that pay for drugs out of pocket. But what about a lot of people have insurance or pay for insurance, and there's a whole system that's interconnected revolving this, where everybody makes money and everybody gets a cut. And there's one of the arms involved in this is government funding for this. You make pharmaceutical companies pharmaceutical drugs cheaper, you hurt the pharmaceutical companies, but does the consumer ever actually feel their pocket getting fatter? That's my question, just revolving around that.
But why would okay. So if I need a drug, right, and the drug is costing me $100, but I could actually get it for actually half the price, and I'm just being scammed for $100 because they want to make money out of me, because the insurance has to get paid and Big Pharma has to get paid. In this case scenario, I rather Big Pharma eat the money that I have to pay out of pocket or that my insurance has to pay, because Big Pharma's big business. Big Pharma's been alive forever, like since opium became a thing and was transported into America from China. So like they've been,
For sure.
Their profits are fucking ridiculous.
For
dude.
sure, the people that are paying for drugs out of pocket, it helps a lot.
But they're saying that for insurance, it will lower the insurance prices, because insurance has to pay a lot of money because of how expensive drugs are.
I am for anything that shrinks Big Pharma, because it is it's a huge,
amen to that.
Yeah, amen. Because it's a huge industry that has a huge influence on medicine, more than medicine, on health, and gives the perception that if you take this drug, it will relieve your symptoms, when I'm more about tackling the symptoms directly.
Exactly.
If you're obese, let's get to work, you know, the right way. Let's change your diet, do exercise. Let's see how much calories you're losing. Your intake cannot be more than what you're exerting.
Exactly.
All these things. It's the source to, let's say, when you're obese, you get diabetes. But instead, Big Pharma promotes these drugs where if you're obese, you know, you take this, you take that, you inject yourself to...
Yeah, it's a Band-Aid.
And it's just a Band-Aid. But my question is, though, regarding this, and this is a very good question, this is actually where I need to get more educated on. For sure, I agree with you if the person's paying out of pocket, but I've never seen insurance get cheaper. And I'm in my
it's because of Big Pharma.
I'm in my early 30s, and you know, my car insurance has only ever gotten more expensive. That's just one example.
We are in Florida, where car insurance is very expensive.
My insurance for where I work has only gotten more expensive. So pharmaceutical companies can get cheaper, but maybe it's just a chance for insurance to rake in more, to get a bigger, like, now their margin to increase, because when someone needs a drug, the insurance is paying, but it's still going to be the same amount that someone's paying for insurance on a monthly basis.
But wouldn't it be a win for insurance companies and the consumers if a drug gets lowered? Insurance doesn't have to pay out as much, so they're making money. That's a win for them, and it's a win for you, because you don't have to pay that much money out of pocket either. Because even with insurance, you still have to pay a copay.
True. I don't think the copay will end. That's why I would need more info, because copays never really go away. But
they can get lowered, which is a good thing. Or completely remove it. That would be good too. But what got me really is that Bernie Sanders. Okay, so backtrack. I didn't vote for Trump the first time around. I didn't vote for Trump the second time around. I didn't vote, period. Not that I didn't vote for him. I just didn't vote. The third time is when I finally voted. And I remember when he ran the first time, Bernie Sanders was running against Hillary Clinton. He was running as an independent, but he's still running as a Democrat nominee. And everybody was following him because of his whole universal health care and the billionaires and the multimillionaires, even though he's a millionaire himself. But he hasn't said anything about this. He's been fighting to make this happen for ever now. The guy's been in politics since he was in his 30s. He's 80-something years old, and he's completely silent. He's silent. AOC is silent. Every Democrat who claims they're for the working class and for lowering your drug prices haven't said shit, except for this guy, Rokana, who's new really in the game. He's not really that.
No politician is purely just operating on altruistic basis. I mean, Bernie Sanders, I think I read somewhere he owns 3 houses. He's worth, I don't know how. You have Nancy Pelosi, you have all. Nobody's just in there for altruistic purposes. They're in there because while they're there, there's some sort of benefit to their self-interest involved.
Yeah, there's a huge kickback.
And some manage it better than others. Some are more low-key about it than others. But there's a huge benefit of self-interest involved. And so them staying silent lowers their... all of a sudden, if they speak for it, they're hurting their party. And their allegiance has become to their party. It's not... Because they have an interest of self-preservation. They still have to be useful to their party.
Not just their party, the pharmaceutical drug companies who are paying them, donating to them.
Who are paying them. And so to be useful to their party or to their to their interest groups, these self-interest groups, they have to walk the line. And so even if they're in line with something, they say that they're in line, but they're getting money from the pharmaceutical companies, then they're just all talk. And this is the first time that something like this, has come about.
I think this is also kind of like a spit in the face. Like, all right, I'm gonna do what Democrats have been saying they're gonna do, and they're never gonna do. So I'm gonna do it, and let's see if they're gonna actually be for it. If they're not for it, then it's because they were lying to you this whole time.
Yeah,
that's literally what I said. I'm like, bro, this is just a power play, because I don't think he gives a shit about this, But RFK does, because RFK is the one who probably told him, hey, I need you to do this because I'm the one for this.
I think Trump this time around came more prepared, and he surrounded himself with people that he trusted. I think the first time around he learned a lot.
Yeah.
And he's not playing the same game that the politicians are playing. He plays it a little bit different, but he's a lot more prepared this time, and he's doing things very methodical, like this executive order.
Yeah.
And part of it is, I was telling a close friend of mine, actually just 2 days ago, that he's come in and he's coming after everybody that did him some sort of injustice the first time around. And part of that was the medical industry, the pharmaceutical companies, with COVID coming out and the way it did, the way it was presented. No matter how you view COVID, there's a lot of hypocrisy involved, a lot of lies that were told, a lot of deceit, a lot when you look at the data with the COVID rates jumping high, but the flu disappeared, a bunch of other different types of deaths dropped. There's a lot of questions that left. To say that there's no questions, it was just absolute, I think it's an injustice to science itself, because science is about raising questions.
Yep.
And this time around, he's coming after everybody and he was well prepared, that were causing him trouble. And part of that is the pharmaceutical industry. They've made drugs for people that really need it impossible, but also have made people addicted to drugs. But and even one more, the idea of the Band-Aid that you're talking about. Don't worry about fixing your problem. Here's a drug. Here's a Band-Aid for it. But don't ever lose weight. Don't ever stop being obese. You could just take this drug. It's a chronic disease what you have. Don't worry.
Exactly.
And which is all BS. Anybody can learn to control their compulsion.
Exactly. I mean, well, let's look into this really quick. This is RFK talking about this, and then I want to talk more into the whole drug epidemic.
Say a few words, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is an extraordinary day. This is an issue that, I grew up in the Democratic Party, and every major Democratic leader for 20 years has been making this promise to the American people. This was the fulcrum of Bernie Sanders' runs for presidency, that he was going to eliminate this discrepancy between Europe and the United States. But as it turns out, none of them were doing it. It's one of these promises that politicians make to their constituents, knowing that they'll never have to do it. And the reason they'll never have to do it is because they know that Congress is controlled in so many ways by the pharmaceutical industry. There's at least one pharmaceutical lobbyist for every congressman, every senator on Capitol Hill, and every member of the Supreme Court. By some estimates, 3. Pharmaceutical companies, the industry itself, spends 3 times what the next largest lobbyist spends on lobbying. So this was an issue that people talked about, but nobody wanted to do anything because it was radioactive. They knew you couldn't get it by Congress. We now have a president who is a man of his word, who has the courage President Trump was taking money from the pharmaceutical industry too. I think they gave you $100 million. But he can't be bought, unlike most of the politicians in this country. And he is standing here for the American people. I don't know what, there's writers like Lord Elizabeth Warren or Robert Reich who are saying that President Trump is on the side of the oligarchs. There has never been a president more willing to stand up to the oligarchs than President Donald Trump. And I'm very, very proud of you, Mr. President, for your courage, I'll say, because I don't want to be crude, your intestinal fortitude, your stiff spine, and your willingness to stand up for the American people. We have 4.2% of the world's population. Our country represents 75% of the revenues for pharmaceutical companies.
That's crazy.
We spend in our country $1,126 per capita on drugs. In Britain, they spend about $240. They spend 1/5 of what we do. And this is true across Europe. And the drug companies, Europeans, if you ask them, it made no sense what they were saying. America has to pay for this innovation or it's not going to happen. President Trump is saying to our European partners is you got to raise the amount that you're paying for those drugs and pay for your share of the innovation. That the United States is no longer subsidizing that. If the Europeans raise the price of their drugs by just 20%, that is $10 trillion. That can be spent on innovation, and the health of all people all across the globe is going to increase. Because we're going to have...
So, pretty much what he wants with NATO is what he wants for this, too. Same thing with NATO. Why are we paying for your military? You have a military. You spend money on your military. Why am I subsidizing you? Same thing with Canada. Why am I subsidizing you? Pay for your own military. It's the same shit. It's like we're paying for their medical bills instead of, you know what I'm saying? Like we should be paying for our medical bills. You pay for your medical bills. And then if we do that, then we'll be able to actually invest in probably better technology. I don't know, find the cure for cancer,
4% of the world's population, and yet 75% of the big pharma's revenue comes from the U.S. Now, we are a very consumer and unhealthy population among the U.S. And the obesity, I think, is number one in the world. But 75% of their revenue, I wonder do we really take that much drugs? From the way does he make sounds of speech, it doesn't seem so. It seems like, we might take more drugs than any other drug, any other part of the world, especially since obesity is so high, because obesity is a product, but it also comes with a lot of other stuff.
Right.
But damn, 75%. And it makes it seem like Europe is, they say, U.S. has to pay for this innovation. If not, there's not going to be any innovation. No. And these are like the smaller things where I'm very glad. Government itself causes I always keep saying this, government itself causes these problems. It's government itself who causes these problems by making these deals in the background, by making these things. But finally, something that gives at least the people here a little leeway.
It makes you question, like, what are we paying politicians for if you're not fighting for us? So all this time, you've been fighting for Big Pharma.
Well, being a politician is nothing more than, at least in today's age, 2025, the illusion of public good, the illusion that I'm fighting for something and I'm your voice. I'm empowered. I'm going to speak your voice. Until it comes time to do actions. And if it's against the special interest that funded them or is donating to them, they're not going to do it.
So you think we should remove, PACs?
PACs?
Yeah, like those the like CPACs or like Turning Point USA, for example. They're a nonprofit organization. They created a PAC and then they fund two different politicians. It's whoever makes the most money. Whoever raises the most money is essentially who wins.
I think that as as time goes on, the internet is actually fairly new compared to our human history. We're humans, as far as the anatomy of a human, of you and I and Laz, has been around for 100,000 years. The internet has been around for what? Since the early 1990s?
Yeah.
And then adoption has picked up. As time goes on, there's an expectation that the internet, and this is something that a lot of intellectuals made early on in the internet, that information would be so free-flowing that people would take an interest and be more informed about things. But what has happened, I think the internet has given way for more compulsiveness, shorter time frame, the inability to think deeply into things, and it's been used a lot for consumer entertainment rather than knowledge. I think that recently, for whatever reason, I'm seeing people actually use it a little bit more. I mean, I feel like there's a very big line that separates. It's still 50-50, but for the people are still using it for entertainment, but a lot of people have a lot more freedom of access to information. They want to better their lives, and they look into things like this. And that's why, I hate to say it to some people, I don't want my brand to get messed up, but I think that's why Trump won. Because there were some people that said, listen, something needs to change, and they don't know what the change is, but they vote for Trump because Trump is a little bit different than the same thing over and over. The gaslighting, like we talked earlier.
He's the content president.
Whether it's immigration or whether we want peace, but you better do it our way. We want more war unless you say, well, all these things, it kind of changed with him. And they don't, I don't agree with the tariffs. I don't agree with this, but then there comes things like this where it's a little bit more common sense. Like, come on, 4% of the population, but 75% of the revenue from the U.S., that's a lot. And people can't afford drugs unless you have insurance. And insurance itself is so off the wall expensive here.
It's not, like, for example, like my sister just had a baby 2 years ago. She had insurance. She still had to pay $20,000. So it's like.
For having a baby?
Yeah. So,
Laz, be ready.
Yeah, man. When she told me that, I was like, damn, fam. I was like, yikes. And that's with insurance, So, like, but at the same time, we go back to the social net. That's because she's a producer. If you're not a producer and you're getting Medicaid, because if you're on Medicaid, you're either not working or you're making, like, barely nothing to survive. You have a kid under Medicaid, you're completely covered. You don't got to pay a dime.
That's the problem.
And that's the problem.
Producers get punished in this type of
back in the days, producers were the ones with all the families because they had the money to maintain them. Now it's the opposite. Now producers are questioning, can I really have more than one kid?
Because back then, if you were poor and you had a kid, you were going to make them suffer. There was no welfare to save you. But in today, there's welfare to save you at the expense of the producer.
Exactly.
And so that producer could have had more kids.
Exactly.
And there's nothing fair about it.
No, there isn't, because
there's nothing fair about it. There's empathy involved. You can understand and say, oh wow, that person needs help or whatnot. The person that doesn't have a lot, but it's not fair because you're taking from somebody that maybe could have had more kids and taking from him unwillingly. It's not like that person has an option to opt out. If one of us here or a producer decides to opt out of paying taxes for what they've produced, then they go to prison. Exactly. They go to jail. Mm-hmm. That's why government is the only entity that uses coercion to continue to exist as an entity. It's the only one. Even the mafia makes money off. It may be illicit activity, like selling drugs or whatnot, but they're still producing. Mm-hmm. And the reason that they're making money is because there's a demand.
Yep.
I'm not even talking about drugs. It could be anything under the table.
Whatever the supply is, yeah.
And government's the only one that's not. And so taking from the producer and giving to the other one, back then you couldn't do that. Now you can. There's a welfare state. You're rewarded for being incompetent.
Exactly.
You're rewarded for being irresponsible.
Exactly. Yes.
At the expense of the responsible person who's the producer.
Right.
Yeah. So that's that stayed with me, and I'm always reading about this every day, because I read a lot of like libertarian literature, and I'm always marveled by that fact that we sacrifice so much of our liberties to the government under the pretense of public good, when really it's not as good as we think.
No, it's not. And it's not fair, because if the person who has the money has to pay, now is in debt for having a child, and they want to give that child the best life possible, then, they give that child the best life possible. But then now this other family who's pretty much leeching, they have 3 kids, and then they don't give those 3 kids the best life possible because they don't have the money to do so. Or, I mean, you don't really have, essentially you really need to have money to give the best life. But you know what I mean. Most people, most people that are in that poor mentality don't make the best decisions, and then as a result, their kids end up fucked up. And then those kids end up probably committing a crime, or they get into depression or whatever. So like, we're investing money in the wrong person. I'd rather spend money on people like my sister, who is willing to make as much money as she can. And if she wants to have as many kids as she can, she will. And she's going to invest in those kids. And then those kids are going to be productive members of society versus, the latter.
And
and if you think about it, isn't that Marxist?
Yeah.
That's Marxist, right?
Actually, over time, the more government grows, the more Marxist it becomes. That's what a welfare state is. But to take from the producers and give to the least productive in society is to create a society where it's compulsive in nature. Because now the producer is less enticed to produce big,
right,
to put their time and energy. If the more they produce, the more they're going to get taxed.
Exactly.
Right. So they're less enticed and to produce, and then the ones that are the least productive are more enticed to continue to be lesser productive because they're going to be maintained. And if they leave a certain threshold of that bracket, they have to be more responsible for the financial decisions that they make. So now all of a sudden you're lowering the long time preference of society in general. So we're degrading society through this system.
Right.
And everybody has an element within their consciousness of self-interest. And we talked about this earlier. Everybody has their price. But I am less willing to work and produce. Or to invent something, to take a risk if I know that I'm going to be, a huge part of my production is going to be taxed.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's going to be taken from me.
It's because it's a cap, pretty much.
And knowing that somebody else is going to get my reward.
Yeah, exactly.
That is not being productive. And then all of a sudden you start slowly heightening the time preference, meaning making society more compulsive, making it more checkers rather than chess type of mentality.
Yes. Yeah, now that you brought that up, it's like taxes, it's psychological, like you said, and it gives you a cap, because it tells you the more money I make, the more you're going to take out of me. So you're kind of giving me like a limit, because I mean, I don't even know how to explain it, but if I know that I can, I mean, obviously your mind is limitless, but if you're going to tax me, I'm going to put a limit on my own mind. You know what I'm saying?
And it's an unconscious thing that happens. It's not like everybody's thinking this together. It's an unconscious process that happens in the social order that we live, which is society. But just to add that one thing, just private property tax also is, before you owned your private property, you didn't have tax. Now, you own a $3 million house, you're paying $30,000 a year in taxes. And that's a lot of money, even if you bought the house a long time ago. So government is always extracting and from the haves and giving to the have-nots.
Yep.
And even the best producers, if you think about it, it's not just that we think directly giving through form of payments. That's one form of legislation, which is transfer of payments. You got that in Social Security. You got that And these type of systems infiltrate the family. They infiltrate the family because if I know I'm going to get Social Security in the future because I've been paying, what incentive do I have? It takes away my incentive to save. If I know that I'm going to have Social Security in the future.
Damn, I didn't think of that.
If I'm going to have Social Security in the future, then now my kid is going to be less enticed to spend time around me or help me in the future because they know I'm getting Social Security. Slowly taking apart the family system.
Wow, I didn't even think of that one.
That's what it was made for.
That's what it was made for.
But also public services. Think about subways, buses, public education, the postal service, all these things. Who are the people that use that? It's the people from the lower socioeconomic status.
Yeah.
But who pays for these services? The producers.
Right.
The most productive. So the producers they have government takes their hand in and provides a public service that they barely even get to use because really it's the people in poverty. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm only talking about the consequence that comes from that, which is that the producers also feel like, hey, I am being targeted. I'm not even using these public services. If this public services were to come through the private sector, not only would my taxes be lowered, but now I get to decide which services I'm going to use. Instead, it's taken from me and all these lower tier services are provided.
And it's not even maintained.
Now, this is very controversial because, I'm basically saying that the people of lower socioeconomic status, since they're not funding these services, they shouldn't have them. But the fact of the matter is that I'm not the moral judgment or the judge. I'm just saying that it's the producers who are paying for these public services, right. And the producers are the ones that are barely use the public service.
I mean, they're producers. They're not gonna want to use a public service anyway. They have money. They have their own car. They have their own jets. But if I'm funding something, I expect it to be like impeccable. Like it needs to be clean. It needs to be maintained, and it's not. Like, look at buses when we were growing up, school buses. They were always dirty. They didn't have seatbelts. And you're literally transporting children from one location to another. This is supposed to be the bus that should be the most funded. And it's not. That's one example of how, like, government mismanages money on purpose. They're aware they're mismanaging money, but the money is being mismanaged, and partly because they're not producing anything to get that money. Right, exactly. So they don't really care. But if I'm producing something, and I keep using the word produce, it doesn't necessarily have to mean a good. It could be a service I provide. Yeah, exactly. But if I'm producing something, and I had to earn that money with my time, let's say, which is direct labor. Exactly. I'm trading. The only time jobs exist is because human time is valuable. Exactly. That's the only thing. Yeah. So if I'm spending my time and my energy, the ability to cost change, to receive money or some sort of purchasing power so I can live my life, I'm less enticed to spend it on crap. Exactly. Because I had to spend my time for it, so now I got this, so now I'm more. But government is not spending time to earn money. What it is doing is it's extracting. So it's not even their money. It's not their energy. It's not their time. It's a constant. And that's why if someone robs this podcast studio or your apartment, they robbed it once and they left and they're never coming back, more probably than not. And they committed a crime, obviously, but they're robbers. They're not coming back. They don't want to see you again because now increases their chance to get caught. Right. But government, they're going to come back year around and take. And they didn't produce it. So of course they're going to misspend it. They're going to misprovide that service. The service is going to cost more. And because of that, they just don't manage the money properly. And that's why the services suck. The products suck. Because they didn't earn it. So we earned it. What you're saying is because government doesn't produce jack, and we are the ones who produce, but we have to give them money because that's how the system works. to pay for
We
everything.
have no option, or
We
else
don't
we
have
go to jail.
Exactly. Then we should be voting people in who have already built businesses and understand the value of money.
Or voting people, or voting, it doesn't have to mean people that build. Well, I mean, it would be ideal if it was somebody that didn't need to be funded by government.
Exactly.
That they were going in and they weren't going to be a career politician.
Exactly.
But everybody that goes into government wants to be a career politician, or a politician wants to be a career.
Right.
They've never built anything.
That's the problem.
And I refuse to believe like a person like Bernie Sanders is naive not to understand what we're talking about. It's just government just extracting, and they have no responsibility. No one's going to jail if they misspend the money.
Exactly.
No one's going to jail if the money is misspent, because they're going to extract it next year again, and probably more.
Mm-hmm.
Because people's wages are constantly going up because the money supply goes up, and so and it's this whole thing, and that's why government, the goods and services that they provide continue to get worse.
Exactly. Yes. So we're giving them more money, and they're literally wasting the money, and they're not even doing what they're supposed to be doing. I mean, California is a great example of that.
And they get so
Fantastic
much
example.
money, and they have so much money because so many rich people move there, and their taxes are they grab so much money from taxes, but it's all misspent.
It's
And
insane.
I'm not one to talk. I can't talk too much about California because I'm not a citizen of California. Maybe the people in California are happy about it, which
No, bro, they're not.
The voting would dictate so.
There's gonna be the census hasn't done it. I think the census is next
There
year.
is an exile that's
But
happening.
the exodus there is insane. It's bigger than the one in the pandemic. It's huge.
And people leave, and they go to places where they feel they're going to be treated best.
Yeah,
and
they're
that's
moving to Arizona. They're moving to Texas. They're moving to Tennessee. They're moving to Florida. A lot of people are moving to Florida.
And people move with their feet, and the capital goes where it's treated best.
Exactly.
And that goes in our bloodline. We started off always migrating. We didn't produce anything. So what would we do? We formed tribes, and we would go land to land. And after we extracted all the resources from that land, all the meat, all the animals, all the plants, all this, we didn't know how to do agriculture. We didn't know, so we moved to another land. So it's in our blood to move to find something better.
Something better, yeah.
And
yeah.
that's what's happening right now. Even within the U.S., within the states, you see it, and even the states where there's mass exodus, like California, you see that even with all the exodus that has happened in the last 4 to 5 years, there's even more people as far as a percentage in that state voting a certain way.
I mean, they got a little redder.
Yeah,
So.
a lot redder.
Yeah.
It's just the concentration though in those blue areas is very strong.
Yeah.
But it goes to show people are understanding, and I think it goes back to something that we were mentioning earlier, is how technology, people are actually starting to use it slowly but surely, and you're seeing it with the younger generation, Gen Z in particular. I felt like the millennials, we used it a lot for
Entertainment,
music and stuff.
Yep.
But now it's like, because you get the entertainment so easily through apps or through this, they're actually using it for more information, and they're saying, hey, like this can be different.
Yeah, for sure. Heck yeah. This was awesome. You're gonna come back. You gotta come back. This was amazing. I
hope I didn't talk too much.
This was so good that I'm gonna have such a good time getting clips from this, because there's so much. Because I usually I try to lower the videos, because we're pumping videos every week and we need to catch up. But this, I can't. I think I'm gonna get like more than 10. So babe, get ready, because it's going to be fucking awesome. This was amazing. Psych Life, I really appreciate this. We will do this again. Guys, subscribe, like, share, comment, and we will see you guys next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Oh my God. This was awesome. All right.
Is this really a good podcast?
No, this was one of the best ones.